Department of Education stuff. It was, of course, reported Wall Street Journal that Donald Trump planned on eliminating the Department of Education. He's been talking about this forever.
The Department of Education's a big con job.
I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job. Education Department. So we're ranked number 40 out of 40 schools, right? We're ranked number 1 in cost per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. And we're ranked at the bottom of the list. We're ranked very badly. And what I want to do is let the states run schools. I believe strongly in school choice. But in addition to that, I want the states to run schools. And I want Linda to put herself out of a job.
He's dead right on that. And good for Donald Trump. Now, Caroline Leavitt came out earlier today and said, no, Donald Trump is not eliminating the Department of Education. Why, though? Not because he doesn't want to. He does want to, because you can't do that by executive order. Linda McMahon, the head of the DOE, can't even do that. She doesn't have the ability to do that. This is one of those things that must be done by Congress itself. We continue to ask Trump to do things Congress must do. Well, why isn't Congress doing those things? Because we sit at home during primary elections and keep sending the same rhino losers back to D.C. who will never do it. Now, all that aside, education, speaking of the system, as we've said, there are 2 central pillars that hold up American communism. The first is one we already touched on, their ability to take your money and fund their revolution with it. They've figured out a way to worm their way through every bit of the government and send your money to fund their revolution. The second pillar is their ability to educate your children with freaks like this.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a high school math teacher and I have a pride flag in my classroom. My job is to teach students math, but it's significantly more than just that. Some of the students that I teach might not have liked their previous math teachers, might not know how to learn math, may have never even passed a math class before. So much of my job is building an atmosphere and a persona that the students feel comfortable learning from me. Because with everyone, especially high school students, learning is scary. Failure is tough, and failure is required to learn. I'm asking my students to be vulnerable with their failures. And in order for them to be vulnerable, they have to feel safe. The pride flag is one of the many ways that I show my kids, regardless of who they are, that you are safe in my class. That no matter who you are, who you love, where you come from, you're welcome here. So yeah, I think that makes sense.
Handing our children over to the communists to be destroyed by things like that is a big reason why we are where we are as a country. We have a mountain to climb, many, many mountains to climb. Destroying the Department of Education is just one of many. But this is why I tell you, we can't just show up for elections when Donald Trump is on the ballot. We can't dust off that MAGA hat once every 4 years and save a country. It doesn't work that way. We have 1,000 battles we still must fight and must win. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right.
The bottom line is because it's not working. Department of Education was set up in 1980, and since that time we have spent almost $1 trillion, and we have watched our performance scores continue to go down. I do believe that it is a responsibility to make sure that our children do have equal access to excellent education. I think that that is best handled at the state level, closest to the states, working with state administrators, teachers, parents, who should have input into their curriculum.
It's wild how just common sense all this stuff sounds, with stuff that I would assume virtually every parent would support, right? Joining me now, Corey DeAngelis, Senior Fellow at the American Culture Project, and the great Ryan Walters, Oklahoma State Superintendent. Corey, that message, that's not even a partisan message, or at least it shouldn't be, right? Isn't that something any parent in schools would sign up for?
Exactly. And she's talking about the proposal in Congress right now to send education back to the states. Send that money, block grant it using the Treasury Department back to the states. You have more local control because the Department of Education is an unconstitutional waste of time and money. They have about 4,000 useless bureaucrats in DC wasting your hard-earned taxpayer dollars on themselves, not on your education. So we would have more local control if we send this back to the states. And I hope she gets in there and body slams this department once and for all.
Ryan, most of us don't need any help hating the Department of Education, obviously, but you are somebody who actually knows how they work, being as how you're the superintendent in Oklahoma. How does it work? How does the DOE make your life harder or easier? What's it look like?
Yeah, let me give you a few examples. One of the things that the Biden administration did very quickly was they started sending out memos that all their grants are going to have DEI in them. So that when you're teaching a kid math or you're talking about how to understand science, you got to now tell them there's 27 genders. You got to be all inclusive, use inclusive language, pronouns, all that nonsense. Then, right when all the conservatives and parents were going, hey, this is going off the rails, don't forget that in the middle of last summer, the Biden administration came out and said, if you don't allow boys in the girls' bathrooms and boys and girls' sports, we're taking every bit of federal funding from you, and we will sue you for using the incorrect pronouns. So us at the federal government will come in, sue teachers, take them out of the classroom for using the wrong gender pronouns. This is the absolute nonsense has been pushed by the Federal Department of Education. Again, while you are 100% right, it is common sense. You are correct, Jesse. The problem is they do not want to give up power because they want to control and indoctrinate your kids. And they know that President Trump doing away with this agency greatly diminishes their power.
Corey, sending the money back to the states and eliminating the Department of Education is something we all cheer for. But it doesn't look like it's going to be as easy as an executive order, right? What does this look like?
That's right. We have limited powers in the executive branch in America, for better, for worse. In this case, it's a little bit for worse because he's trying to reduce government involvement in our lives. Should be a little bit easier for him to do that, but it does require a filibuster-proof majority in the U.S. Senate, which is a 60-vote, 3/5 majority. We only have 53 Republicans in the Senate right now, so I don't see 7 Democrats coming along, but because they're a wholly owned subsidiary of the teachers unions who get 99% of the contributions from the teachers unions goes to the Democrat Party. But we did have Randy Weingarten actually on MSNBC recently admitting herself that she believes that education should not be controlled by the federal government, that should be controlled by the states. She basically made a case to abolish the department. And she also said that her members, quote unquote, don't really care all that much about whether there's a federal Department of Education. They just really want the money. Well, if you look at what the bill does, it sends that money back to the states. We'd have more money for education than we had before if you're not wasting as much of it on the bureaucracy. And so, okay, Randy, let's call her bluff, and maybe she'll lobby the Democrats to vote for the bill to return education to the states. I don't see her doing that because she has Trump derangement syndrome, and so do all the Democrats in Congress. And because Trump is supporting it, they're going to act like they have to be against it. But it is a fantastic idea to, it's not like the money's evaporating, which is what's happening right now. It would go back to the states. Any useful entities like the special needs programs, that would move under the Department of Health and Human Services. Things like civil rights protections, that moves under the Department of Justice. So this isn't as crazy of an idea as what the Democrats are trying to make it out to be. It's not as transformative, but it would be beneficial for the individual kids in those states if we had more local control.
Ryan, everybody knows the numbers, and they're sad numbers about what's happened to our education system. Trump talks about them all the time, 40th this, 40th that. How did that happen in a country where we do have so many wonderful teachers? I know so many of them. In a country with this much money, we have the money for the textbooks, we have the resources, we have resources people around the world would kill for, and yet we're graduating some of the dumbest freaking people in the world. How did this happen?
And I think we lay a lot of this at the feet of the Federal Department of Education. When you look at its creation under Jimmy Carter, what had American education been like before then, right? So we had become the greatest country in the history of the world. We had some of the greatest minds, greatest inventors in world history that came from America. But in the 1970s, we created a Federal Department of Education. By the way, that was an ask from the teachers union. National Teachers Union lobbied Jimmy Carter for it. He puts it in place. And what's happened since? Every academic test score has gone the wrong direction. And then also look at society overall, Jesse. We have teenage suicide record high, teenage drug use record high, Everything has gotten worse as we've allowed federal bureaucrats to manipulate education and turn it into focusing on indoctrination rather than academic performance, rather than making sure that kids are utilizing their God-given talents and not allowing parents to play that lead role in developing their children. I mean, think about the absurdity of this. So if you would have told folks back during the founding era of America that bureaucrats in D.C. would dictate the curriculum inside a one-room schoolhouse at the time with their local teacher, they would have thought that was absurd. Think about the thought process here of where we've come from as a country that believed in individual capability, individual capacity, to one that believes that a bureaucrat in D.C. literally should be telling a teacher in your local schoolhouse how to teach their class and telling parents you have no business in your kid's classroom or your kid's education. We have really reached a crescendo here of absolute absurdity, and thank God for President Trump to put an end to this.
Gentlemen, thank you both. Come back soon, please. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.